Fellowship of the Ring series, all the extended DVDs. We normally do it in January. I love December and Christmas lights and the holidays and Christmas movies. So, this tradition kind of helps me get through January after all the holidays are gone, it's cold. And this year, actually, I read The Hobbit to Maggie and Isaac, so I really felt like I was in Tolkien's world. And obviously, there's lots of spiritual analogies in the movies. The most obvious one is that, the ring represents evil and sin, and, although we know it will destroy us, we still want it. Of course, at the end, we have the rightful king on the throne, and everything's restored when evil is destroyed. But this time I noticed a few other things that I hadn't noticed before. The first thing I noticed was that Frodo, the main hobbit, and the others that set out on this quest didn't have the choice that it seems like they have. It seems like the choice is either, am I going to live in the Shire, this idyllic, kind of perfect little world, or am I going to go out on an adventure? But really, once Frodo realizes that the ring is out there, the Shire is going to be destroyed. The whole world is doomed. So the choice is, am I going to stay here and ignore the knowledge that I know, and try to live in ignorant bliss, or am I going to be a part of redeeming the world, the Shire and the rest of Middle Earth? So I think we're kind of like that. We know that we have an enemy. We know that evil is real. We know that people around us are dying, but what choice will we make? Tolkien describes the hobbits as kind of simple folk. They enjoy gardening, eating, socializing, smoking pipes. They stay close to home. Yet Frodo was willing to make this sacrifice because he saw a bigger battle at hand. And I'm kind of like a hobbit in that way too. If I had the choice between a cozy life and an adventurous life, I'd choose the cozy life. But I think that there is a battle that's much bigger, and that we're called to enter in. And if you read the Gospels, it's hard not to feel that urgency as we're reading through right now. Jesus goes to feast, he goes to weddings, he spends time with friends, but all the while there's this message underneath it, the kingdom of that Jesus came to set up a kingdom on earth that was unlike any other, and it is of utmost importance to be a part of this, and that if you want to be a part of it, you have to lay down your life and take up your cross. Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John show us that Christianity isn't something that you add to a busy life. It is the meaning of life. The second thing that really stood out to me this time was the beautiful picture of community. Right here I have a picture of the Fellowship of the Ring. Frodo couldn't destroy the ring on his own. We had hobbits, elves, a dwarf, a wizard, men, including a king, all working to the same goal. Some of them had to battle orcs, create a diversion for him. Gandalf had to give them wisdom. The elves gave them special gifts. His friend Sam gave him encouragement. So they were all a part of this great task. So, and just like we are here. So you can decide, if you're a hobbit or a dwarf or an elf or a human, but we're all a part of this great task here. Or what your neighbor is, you can decide. But, I think one of the scariest verses in the Bible is not in Revelation, it's not about a dragon or anything, but it's in one of John's letters. And it's 1 John 4:20. And the verse reads, "If anyone says, 'I love God,' yet hates his brother, he is a liar. For anyone who does not love his brother, whom he has seen, cannot love God, whom he has not seen." So in other words, how much we love God is largely judged by how much we love one another. I think it's sometimes easy to think we love God because he seems far off and distant and he's perfect. But when we have to deal with each other, all of us imperfect, it's a different story. But yet God looks at our love towards him and how we love one another. Thankfully, he gave us his Spirit to help us. Thankfully, he prayed for us. He could foresee all the conflicts that could come. So I want to look more closely at one of Jesus' prayers, actually. It's in John 17, verses 20 through 26. And I think John 17 is one of the most fascinating chapters in the whole Bible because we actually have a recorded prayer of Jesus. What a treasure that is. To kind of set the scene, he's been with the disciples. They've celebrated the Passover. He's washed their feet. He's told them that, he's going to die, be resurrected, that they're going to have the Holy Spirit. He's told them that in this world, we'll have trouble, but take heart, I've overcome the world. And then he comes out, and it says he lifts his face up to heaven and begins to pray. So I guess you don't have to close your eyes to pray. Jesus didn't. And he starts and he prays for himself. Then he prays for the 12. And then he prays for us. He prays for everyone who will believe because of their message. And this is where I pick up on the prayer. My prayer is not for them alone. I pray also for those who will believe in me through their message, that all of them may be one, Father, just as you are in me and I am in you. May they also be in us, so the world may believe you have sent me. I've given them the glory that you gave me, that they may be one as we are one, I and them and you and me. May they be brought to complete unity, to let the world know that you have sent me and have loved them even as you have loved me. Father, I want those you have given me to be with me where I am and to see my glory, the glory you have given me because you loved me before the creation of the world. Righteous Father, though the world does not know you, I know you, and they know that you have sent me. I have made you known to them and will continue to make you known in order that the love you have for me may be in them and that I myself may be in them. So if you read this whole prayer too, there's such intimacy between the Father and the Son and their oneness and the desire that Jesus has for us to experience that as well. If you look at it more closely, again, like I said earlier, he doesn't just pray for the disciples, but for everyone who will believe after them. And every single one of us here, whether we can trace our conversion back to our parents telling us, or church, or campus ministry, we ultimately can trace our conversion back to the original followers of Jesus, that someone told someone, told someone, told someone, told someone, and here we are, New Life Triangle, 2013, a body of believers because of that. And what did he pray for us? He prayed that we would be one. He could have prayed so many things, and yet he prayed that we would be unified. And he goes on to define what being one is, as that we would be connected like the Father and the Son. That might be a little bit more oneness than we bargained for, right? But he said that I pray that they may be brought to complete unity so that the Lord will know that you sent me. So our unity not only glorifies God, it's not only a blessing to us, but it's one of our greatest evangelism tools that we have. And this makes sense. Think of how many people you probably know personally who have left the faith because of a church split, because of disunity. Now, sometimes churches split because of, affairs or scandals, but often it's hurt feelings, and disagreements over style of worship. The big joke is carpet color. I don't know, that we can find the pettiest things to disagree over, and the world's watching, and they see if we can't even love one another, and yet we're offering love to them. But on the other hand, the world looks to us and they see our love. They see that the gospel has the power to overcome racial barriers and social barriers and make people who previously never would have got along with each other get along. What a testimony that is as well. There's an inborn longing in all of us for community. The most popular show in the 1980s was Cheers. I don't know if any of you are familiar, but it's set in Boston, and it has a really popular theme song. Does anyone remember the theme song? Yeah, I can't sing or I'd sing, but it's "Don't you want to go where everybody knows your name and everyone knows we're all the same? They're always glad you came. Don't you want to go where everyone knows your name?" And the whole premise was, there's this bar, and all these people have this connection from all these different walks of life. There's one guy, and he's an accountant, and he hates his life outside of the bar, but he comes in, and everyone shouts, "Norm!" And he feels this welcome there, In the 1990s, the most popular show was Friends. Kind of a similar idea that these group of people would come together, and their theme song is, "I'll be there for you when the rain starts to pour. I'll be there for you like I've been there before. I'll be there for you because you've been there for me too. Kind of that whole idea of like, oh, I'm going to have this community. And if people don't find the community in the church, they're going to look for it other places, for sure. But unfortunately, life is not like TV, and broken people tend to break one another after a while, that without Christ, this kind of community is almost impossible. I think that's why there's such a large portion of the Bible is committed to teaching us how to live together. It says that, how not to gossip, not to hurt one another. And when we live these instructions out, when we extend grace, when we forgive, when we choose to refrain from slander, when we seek to encourage, when we confront when we need to, when we understand one another, when we weep with those who weep and rejoice with those who rejoice, when we take time to feast together and celebrate, the world notices, and they're almost drawn irresistibly to that. I've seen that happen again and again. I had a cousin who wasn't a believer who went with me for a week to China when Danny was there with the team. And the thing that blew her mind more than anything else in China was the idea of a team community. She saw these 8 people who lived kind of together and served and loved one another. She talked about that the whole way back. And although she didn't accept Christ, she was one of those kind of skeptics who took one step closer because she saw people love her too as an outsider that came in. We saw that also at our church in Boston, people who, were so opposed to the gospel but couldn't deny that, wow, why are these people so nice? Like, why do they love each other? People are drawn to that. Jesus says that the church is his bride, and it's singular. It's not plural. We're not his brides, but together we form one. So as we move forward as a gospel-sharing community, we have to make a commitment to choose love and unity, or we won't have anything to offer people once we bring them in. We need to use our gifts and talents to serve one another. As individuals, we can only be one place at one time. I know that seems really obvious, but it was really an epiphany for me the other day. I was actually talking to Pam, and she was going to China, and I thought, I can't go to China right now, but she can, and we're part of one body. And if you think about it, think about everyone in the world who's never heard the gospel. Think of everyone who's hungry or poor, exploited, all the people in need of medical help, all the orphans who don't have homes, all the children who need to be educated. Think of all the people suffering from depression who need counsel. Think of all the laws and policies that are being made without a Christian voice to serve as a moral compass. It's overwhelming. As one person we can do so little, but as a body, it's incredible to think of what we can do when we encourage one another. Let me see where I am. If we're lone rangers, we're in trouble. But as one body, each doing its part, we can be part of something incredible. Just like Jesus' prayer in John 17, we can be part of showing the world that out of love, God sent the world to save it. And just like Danny reminded us this morning, there are many in this city. There are many in Raleigh that are God's. And we get to be a part of going out and bringing those in. So let's look at what Paul has to say about the body of Christ in 1 Corinthians chapter 12, starting with verse 12. The body is a unit, though it's made up of many parts. And though all its parts are many, they form one body. So it is with Christ. For we were all baptized by one Spirit and into one body, whether Jews or Greeks, slave or free, and we are all given one Spirit to drink. So I want to stop here for 1 minute. As I was preparing this really stood out to me in a new way. Pastor Sam reminded us last Sunday that the Jews at this time were taught to believe that they were special because of their otherness. But here it says that, Jews and Greeks, they're one. And even more than that, slaves and free people are one. They're part of one. Now, it's totally different than saying, rich people be nice to poor people. Or, free people don't mistreat slaves or put them down. Or, the dominant race be, nice to people of another race. Instead, he is saying that they're interdependent on one another. That the free person needs the slave just as much as the slave needs the free person. And that's something totally unique in the body of Christ. In the world today, in America today, churches are divided not only by race, but by education, economic status. But really that's a disservice to all of us, that we need, in order to be one, we need to be diverse. We need the whole body working together. He goes on to say, now the body is not made up of a part, but many. If the foot should say, because I'm not a hand, I do not belong to the body, it would not for that reason cease to be part of the body. And if the ear should say, because I'm not an eye, I do not belong to the body, it would not for that reason cease to be part of the body. If the whole body were an eye, where would the sense of hearing be? If the whole body were an ear, where would the sense of smell be? But in fact, God has arranged the parts in the body, every one of them, just the way he wanted them to be. If they were all one part, where would the body be? As it is, there are many parts, but one body. When it comes to gifts, there are two types of pride, I think. The first one is obvious. It's the arrogant boaster, the person who's always busy but won't delegate, who's really quick to say all that they have to do or draw attention to every act of service that they make. We know that can be frustrating. But I think the second type of pride is harder to detect, and it's quite more prevalent, really. I think this is the person who appears humble, but it's really false modesty and hypocrisy. It's the person who says, I don't have any gifts, I don't have any talents to offer. It's the perfectionist who's so afraid of it not being perfect that they're not willing to be childlike and be teachable and sometimes appear foolish or make mistakes as they're learning. It's the ear that wants to be the eye. It's the person who wants is dissatisfied with their part to play. But yet, this passage tells us that God has arranged the parts of the body exactly the way he wanted them to be, and that in order to function, we need us all working together. And as a relatively small church with a really big goal of being a gospel-sharing community, living that call out, that command out, we have to function as a body. Your gifts are not superfluous, they are vital. If you're good at showing hospitality, the body needs you to open your home. If you have faith in prayer, we need you to pray. If you're friendly and good at inviting others, we need you to do that. If you're good at serving and seeing what needs to be done, you need to just step up and do that. If you have a good voice, the body needs you to sing out. I know I can't sing, and I love when people sing loudly because my voice kind of blend in and not distract people around me. So if you're good with children, the body definitely needs that. If you're good at listening, that's needed. If you're an encourager, if you're a peacemaker, if you're someone who's good at confronting and helping with conflict, if you have a heart for the poor and marginalized, we need you to share that with us. If you're good at evangelism, set an example for those of us who struggle. Some of you might not know the gifts God has given you. And if that's the case, I urge you to pray about that God would reveal that to you, and to ask trusted people who are close to you, what do you see in me? Like, what are some things that you've noticed that maybe I could be using for God's glory and for the body? I have seen the gifts displayed in amazing ways just this weekend in this church. I mean, I think everyone agreed. Jamin with the games today, that was really incredible. The worship team just now, all those people who silently have served, all the logistics and stuff that so many of us hate to do, and it's just incredible, and you think, what could this be if we form a community that is really just offering our gifts to God, but serving one another in the process and bringing others in and showing them how to do that too. So I would like us to, think more seriously about that. This is going to sound dramatic, but I think that what we do as New Life is really life and death business. If we think that eternity is real and there really is a resurrection from the dead and heaven and hell are real, then this life is very, very short and very, very important. And I don't say that to scare us. I mean, God is sovereign. It's not on our shoulders. He's in control. But he has invited us in to be a part of that, part of him redeeming the world. That's incredible. So when we each have a part to play, New Life Triangle has its own special place to play in God redeeming the world for Christ. And each one of us have a part to play in that. So 2 things I'd like to ask you to think about in the coming days is one, one of Satan's number 1 attacks is to attack our unity. I mean, that is one of the main reasons people leave the mission field, is because of inter-team conflict, and everyone has heard stories about that in churches. So that God would protect our unity, and that ask God that if there's anyone that you need to make things right with, that you need to apologize to, or even check, that you would be willing to do that. There's even a seed of kind of bitterness springing up. And then secondly, to ask God, what part does he want you to play? And he doesn't want you to do everything. I feel like the times in ministry have been the worst for me is when I've agreed to do something because I thought no one else would do it and I'm the only one. And, sometimes we do have to do that. I'm not saying that. But no one here is called to do everything. So ask God, really, what role do you want me to play? How do you want me to step up and to serve? What part do you want? What gift do I have to offer? I'm not exactly sure what being gospel, sharing community will look like for us. I hope that we continue on in unity. I don't think we'll necessarily all be best friends. It's hard to have, 70 to 100 best friends. That's one of the reasons we have life groups. But I hope that we will have a spirit of being there for one another. To jump back to the Lord of the Rings analogy, I have some pictures. I hope that we would be willing to carry one another, like Sam was willing to carry Frodo, and that we'd be willing to be carried. Sometimes that's the harder role, to admit when you need help and allowing your brothers and sisters in Christ to come around you and help you. I pray that we would be willing to fight for one another. God, Legolas. Yes. Put that one in, And then that we would believe the best in one another, that we really would stand up for one another. And that we would also enjoy celebrating together. That the gospel is good news, and that we would feast and that we would celebrate what God has done in our life, and that we would continue to build fellowship. And that together we would fight evil with the power of the gospel. So thank you so much for letting me share with you tonight. I look forward to working with you and becoming, growing as a gospel sharing community.